All right, hi guys. I'm Quinn. Hello, Jared. I'm going to be showing off Bosca Ceoil, or however you would like to pronounce it. I will not judge you as long as you don't judge me. This is a music program, and just a show of hands, who's going to be following along? Just so I know, like who downloaded and who's interested. Okay, cool. Now, out of those people who are going to be following along, how many of you actually know what to do with music? One. Okay, yeah, that's kind of what I thought. So, here's the thing. I don't know the first thing about music, but I made a song anyway. Find out how in the next 40 minutes. So, open up Bosca Ceoil if you haven't already. And just for a side note, we are going to put this up later, but also if you want help, there's literally this help button right here, and it gives you a very quick and easy TLDR of what does the program do. So Bosca Ceoil is kind of limited in what it does. It's very basic and very easy to kind of tell what's going on, but because it's so basic, it doesn't do much. So it gets the job done for your 8-bit soundtrack that you're trying to make, but you really have to fight against it if you want to do anything else. Like, for instance, you can only do quarter notes as your smallest note. So you can't do 8th notes or 16th notes. If you want to do that, you could very jankily just put the BPM to double what you want and make your quarter notes your 8th notes. But the BPM also only goes up to 220, so you're going to have a pretty slow song if that's what you're trying to do. So I'm just going to leave it at 120 for now. That's what it starts as. So then there's this. This is the pattern. So the way Bosca Ceoil works is over here you have your patterns. You drag them onto the arrangement, and it'll just copy over the, so like say this is our pattern. When you drag it over, it just copies that over wherever. So the pattern over here, what this does is it'll just increase the it'll increase the amount of quarter notes in each measure. Why you'd want to do that, I don't know, but like if you're making different kinds of music, you can mess around with that. And then this will also increase just the amount of them on the screen that you can see. So now we have double the amount of notes, like quarter note pieces that we can put on there that we wanted to. As you can see, I'm not using very musical terms. So yeah, that should give you a good heads up for how much I know about music. So if I can do this, I guarantee you guys can too. So first thing we're going to do is we're going to go over to the arrangement. We're just going to put this down. So you can left click and drag from up here. See over here, that's how you put your patterns into the timeline. And then you can also click from the timeline if you want to move them. Right click to delete them. So those are just basics. This bar down here, this is your timeline. So this highlights what you want it to be playing currently. Now again, it's kind of annoying because you can't just select a pattern and listen to it. You have to have it playing in the timeline. So if you want to see how one pattern sounds, you have to put it by itself and just make that play in the timeline, which is annoying, but it's whatever. It's not that bad. So once you have your pattern, we're going to go over to instruments. So now, you have, whenever you click add instrument, add new instrument, it'll just give you a random instrument. And from that point, you see over here, we have the type of instrument and then the instrument in that category. So it has MIDI, drum kit, chiptune, piano. I'm going to start off with bass because any good song needs some sort of bass. And then you can see they have all these different kinds. Personally, I don't think you need to mess around with that many. You can if you want, but a lot of them kind of sound the same. Is the audio on for the projector?
You have to check your, just right click down here.
Well, that seems to be the issue.
There you go.
Okay. Let's see. I still don't hear it. Oh,
Because
well, now
it's
it's
muted
muted.
now. Just turn it down.
Well, now it's coming out of here. Oh, that's... Yeah, that's great. I don't know, it's not coming out of the projector. It's not showing up as a...
That's weird.
Let me see.
No, it's not going to be in there. I mean, you just unhook and re-go again. You should try it.
Yeah.
Just like click it a few times. Just click.
What,
Just
up
on the
here?
sound bar.
Oh.
Yeah, just click a couple times. In the right here.
Oh.
No, you gotta click. Back. Yep. Now click here. It's coming out of your thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know, man. You can always just turn it up all the way.
Yeah. All right, so my computer's not super loud, but hopefully you guys can hear, and if you can't, you can mess around with your own for now. But basically, once you pick your instrument, so we have our first pattern selected right now, so that's the one we're fiddling with. Down here in the bottom left, you'll see which instrument is currently selected for the pattern you're on. So since we want to do bass, we're going to switch from the grand piano to the bass. And then, you know, now you have your notes over here on the side, and you have these numbers over here just kind of gives you an indication of how high on the scale they are. So it just kind of gives you relative knowledge. So like if I'm working in 3 different patterns and I just kind of want to continue from the last pattern, like say I had B in 8 as the last note on my other pattern, and then I wanted to continue that by going to just like dropping down an octave or something on my next pattern, I can just check like, oh, 8 to 7, and I don't have to kind of manually do it. It's just an easy reference point. Other than that, so here's where Bosca Ceoil really shines for people who don't know what they're doing. This down here in the bottom right, this is going to be one of your best friends for this. So all I did to find out how to make music is 2 Google searches and like 1 YouTube video, because basically you're just kind of going to throw notes around and see if it sounds pretty, which is really easy to do when you can select the scale you want to be in. So when you select your scale down here, for instance, now I'm in a pentatonic major. What that means, I have no clue. But it does mean that now whatever notes I put in here are going to kind of go together at least somewhat, because they're all in the same scale. So now I don't have to worry about like actually being good at music and knowing what makes a good harmony, because I can just put multiple notes in here and they're all in the same scale. So it just works, which is great for someone who has no idea what he's doing. Bass is probably not the best one to show you on. Yeah, well. See, at least that sounds somewhat better than if I were to just throw notes around on the regular scale. Yeah, right? See, like, I don't know what I'm doing. I just woo! And there you go. No. No, okay. Not too many notes. A little less than that. But, so this is why. Okay, this is the next thing. So here's the low pass filter. I personally recommend leaving it up here, because otherwise that'll happen. But if you like move it around, it just kind of like messes with the sound. So I recommend leaving that up here, because if you want a different sound, you might as well just pick a different instrument. So like, what are we on right now? We're on analog bass. So if I go to like chopper bass or whatever, like that's obviously a very different sound. So why bother with this when you can just change the sound? And again, for people who don't really know what they're doing, that's a lot of extra work when it's just like, oh, this is a different word. I know what I'm doing now. And so here's also the volume. So again, it's very limited. The volume will lower the volume for every pattern that uses this instrument. So you can't just lower the volume for this pattern specifically. But like if I make another pattern and it also uses the instrument, that's also going to be lowered, which is kind of annoying. But again, it's a very basic program, so it's not going to go crazy with extra features. So when you're back in your arrangement, now I'm just going to make a simple beat just for the bass. because, So let me just erase all of these real quick. Also, you can see using, oh dear, that's in the way. You can see where, so like say I put notes up here and then I move down, it'll give me a reference of like where notes are that are off screen by these like yellow bars. They'll be on either the top or the bottom. Click here to add a new pattern, and let's say you want to get rid of a pattern. Like let's say you don't like one, and rather than erasing everything like, oh no, I put a ton of stuff in here and wow, that looks really annoying to just right click and erase. You can go down to the bottom right, drag it down, and there'll be a delete thing that pops up. Just toss it out and you're good. So here's your timeline. You can, drag stuff around, you can delete, and you can also say like I decide to, I don't know, do something like this and I want to get rid of the space in between. If you right click down here, you'll delete. And if you want to add, let's say, a measure in between two patterns or two sets of patterns, whatever, you can middle click with the mouse wheel and it'll add measures back in. So let's just say, I'm going to choose a scale. Let's go with a major scale. So now I don't have to worry about that. And I want to just make a simple bass line. Wow, look at me. I'm making music. That was difficult. So now let's say, I want to add something else. So you can put as many like instruments as you want. up to 16, but like you can have a good amount, Yeah, there is a limit, but you can approach that limit until you get there. But again, it's a limited program, and for people who don't really know what's going on, do you really need 16 instruments? Can I use the Goblin's instrument? For you, Anna, sure. Wow. That sounds real good. Nice.
Wait, you have to. Oh, wait, it's pretty much in the center. Wait.
Okay.
Is it not doing anything?
Goblin sounds really nice. I mean, goblins are silent, right? Like, yeah, right? I've not tried goblins before, so that's new. Yeah, my volume's working. The goblins are not. I got nothing.
Wait, is the instrument volume high?
No, the instrument volume's all the way up. See, so if you see the gray square is where it also originates from, so you don't have to worry about like where you put it. The blue square for here is where it is. So if I just move it all the way up, the volume's up, and it does not like goblins. So now you know, at least for my computer, goblins is not a viable instrument. Who would have thought? That was fun. So I'm just going to create a bass line. Can you make your own instruments? Well, you can kind of make your own instruments by messing around with the filter pad. No. I'm pretty sure I haven't seen anything like that. Add new instrument just adds a new instrument to here. Yeah. But so along with that, let's say I put a bunch of notes here. I'm making music. And then you want to transpose it like down or something. So say I accidentally I put all of my notes an octave up and I would like to move them half a step down or something musical. You can touch these. The plus and minus down here will move all of the notes in the pattern up or down. Plus for up, minus for down. Very intuitive. So now let's say you just kind of wanted to move everything down a measure, or not a measure, an octave for a harmony or something. You can do that, and you don't have to worry about just remaking all the notes. Along with that, if you middle click a pattern that's already in your timeline, it'll create a new pattern with all of the old notes still in it. So now these are essentially the same. They're literally the same thing. It's just now this one is classified as a different pattern. So if I change this, like I said, let's say I want to move this down however much. Now I can put them on top of each other, and I didn't have to redo all of the notes in 2 based on, like, I didn't have to go to 1, look at all the notes, go to 2, move it over. I didn't have to do any of that by hand. I was able to just duplicate it and then move it from there. If you want to put, so, you know, add your new patterns over here, put whatever. We're gonna use sci-fi. How does sci-fi sound? Let's find out. Hopefully it sounds better than goblins. Again, so here's the annoying part. You see, I had to come back to the arrangement and specifically select this measure because I didn't have 4 in the timeline. So it's annoying that I can't just like test things out over here, but you know, that's what sci-fi sounds like. So you can mess around with a lot of the instruments and stuff on your own. They have some weird ones. Like they have a lot of different, yeah, that's one. So they have a lot of different instruments that you can use, but you can mess around and see what you like the best. Personally, again, because I don't really know what I'm doing, I just kind of stuck to the basics when I was making a song. I just kind of went, okay, it needs a bass line, it needs some sort of like kick from a hi-hat or something. It needs piano and strings and wind instruments, and I just kind of did one of each of those basic elements and put it in. Do you have a question, Brad?
Yes. Can you put in D?
I'm not putting in Megalovania.
Thank you. God.
Besides, even if I did want to, I can't because I can't use the 8th notes.
Yeah, you also can't use 8 notes. So like,
Someone figured out how to do it anyway.
I tried. I was going to, but on the subject of changing your note side, right now we only have quarter notes, but sometimes you need half notes or dotted half notes or whole notes, or for some reason, if you want a note that spans 4 measures, you may do that. Just scroll your mouse. Yeah. Wow, now you get to hear that the whole time. Okay. That was fun, wasn't it? I bet you all enjoyed that. So if you don't like that noise, don't use special detune. Detune. That's what I said. God bless you.
that's what I said. God bless you.
Yeah, so you guys can mess around on your own. You can also, over here, you can get real funky. This just kind of changes what's at the top of your, it just puts the note that you select at the top of your screen. Like it just shifts it so that that's at the top. So if you're trying to work in a specific chord, you can just choose whatever chord you want and move it to the top of the screen. You know, there you go. Yes. So, okay, so what the scale does, so the scale just puts all the notes that are in that type of scale, like it removes all the other notes from over here. So now I can't choose anything that's not in a pentatonic minor. Yeah.
So you have a pentatonic minor. Oh my god, this is amazing. So you can only place notes in a pentatonic minor in G sharp major.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's wild.
Yeah. So now, like, that makes it really easy. That's, see, like, that didn't even sound terrible, even though I'm just, like, throwing notes around. Do you think I did anything special? No, I dragged my mouse across the screen. I have no idea how to make music. What the heck? Like, so, if it's that easy, like, yes, again, we have had problems where it's like, oh, you can't do super extravagant things. But hey, if you're looking to make a song and you don't know where to start, just scribble. There you go. If you are interested in making more advanced stuff, what I did was I watched someone, this is probably not the best person to watch, but personally I figured out stuff from him. Shady Cicada is a YouTube channel. He does like goofy videos on like, oh, how to make an RPG theme or how to make like an anime intro theme. But he explains like how he makes them in it. So yeah, it's goofy, but he'll be like, add runs if you want this feeling, or add like a minor chord to make it seem like the villain is approaching in your song, and then put like a motif, put something that repeats as like a leitmotif, so that you can reoccur that and put that in later using your patterns. Now you don't have to redo it every time. You can just put that in later and layer it on top of other stuff, and that's how you get it to feel like the heroes are winning. Stuff like that. But I'm not going to go too much into music theory because that's not what this is about. This is mainly about the program. So you also have advanced over here. What this does, this just like changes the delay. It doesn't do much. You have a couple different things. That makes it sound more chorusy. You know, here you have reverb. If you would like to make this sound atrocious. Okay, never mind. That didn't sound as bad as I was expecting it to. But, you know, you've got, like, all different stuff over here. You can just kind of increase distortion. That's fun. And then you can also add, like, swing. Wow. I know what I'm doing, right? Like you can tell I have no musical concept whatsoever. I'm just, like, hitting buttons to figure out what I want to do, and this program allows me to do that. Sound buffer, I wouldn't really mess with. This is only for when you export it. So I think you'll get better quality or a higher kind of range of notes that it can export if you choose the lower ones, but it's going to take a lot longer. So like if you export something and it's kind of cracking or screechy a lot, you can try and increase the sound buffer, but I'd just leave it on 2048. So, you know, it just has the credits here. Fun fact, this is actually, I think this was made by the same guy that made Dicey Dungeons, if anyone knows that. But other than that, so now, you know, say you're finished with your song. We didn't do much, or I didn't do much. I don't know what you guys did, but I just threw notes on the screen. If I want to save it, you can save it as, it has its own file type. You can name it whatever. I am good at music. That's my file name. And I'm going to put it wherever I want. I just made a folder called songs so that I know where I'm putting it. And then, you know, say you wanted to load it back up. Now you can just go in your folder, just click it. There you go. And then let's say also you wanted to export it. You can export it as a MIDI file, a WAV file, or you can go to more, but odds are you're probably just going to export it as a WAV file because that's your basic thing. So I made a song. Took me about 2 days, like maybe 4 hours of me just throwing stuff on the screen and hoping it sounded good, and it didn't sound terrible. So if you guys think what I'm about to play sounds halfway decent and you don't know how to make music, well, you're in luck because this program made the music for me, basically. I just kind of threw notes on the screen and wow, it didn't sound terrible. So after this, if you guys have any questions, let me know, but I'm just going to let it play. It's kind of hard to hear because it's not coming out of the screen, but it should get better. So that may not have sounded perfect, but I did that by just kind of throwing stuff on the screen and praying. So it sounded at least halfway decent, right? Like at least everything sounded like it somewhat belonged together instead of just screeching notes for me trying to figure out how to harmonize. I didn't have to do any of that because, well, it puts it in the scale for me. You know, like here, oh, I'm in a pentatonic minor. Now I don't have to worry about making it sound good. Over here, you know, I'm in a pentatonic major if I can find that. So you can also mix it up, and you can also layer everything, and it's really easy to see what you have where because everything's kind of color-coded too. So all of the piano type stuff, it's like in purple, so I know where I have my, oh dear, goodbye. That wasn't important. Oh, look, I fixed it. I didn't have to do much. I just dragged. It duplicated it for me. So it's color-coded, which is really nice. If you have a lot of stuff going on, you can just kind of be like, oh, here's all my piano. Here's my strings. Here's my bass. Here's my drum set. You know, and you don't have to worry about clicking on all of them and squinting at what instrument is going on down at the bottom. And you can also change it at any time, you know, like, oh, now I want trumpet or whatever. So it makes it really easy. And also because you can see the quantity of notes on here, this is a little more on the music theory side, but if you have a lot of instruments playing a lot of notes at once, it's going to sound really busy. So I can tell, like, oh, here not a lot of notes are playing, so I can make this pattern, you know, really busy if I want because the other ones aren't going to be playing that much. Or I can make this one less because I know the other ones are going to be kind of going crazy, like that's their solo moment or whatever. So it's really easy to kind of tell what you're doing and where you are. And if you have, you know, something that you want to do personally, this is me personally, but I also organized it. I put all of the type of instrument on the same line. So my bass line is always on the first line for the entire thing. And that makes it really easy to see and to recognize I have a bass line here. So that's in part of the program because it's just really easy to line everything up just because of how it's formatted. Like, I don't have to worry about reading sheet music or anything for this. So I can just kind of look at the patterns and look at the instruments and hope it works. As long as everything's in the same scale, it should sound pretty all right. So, you know, it may not be perfect, but it'll get the job done for someone who has no idea what they're doing. Last thing real quick, you can highlight, you know, however many you want, but also if you want to just play the whole song, you can double click on anywhere and it'll play the whole song from that point onwards. So now, like, instead of just playing this one and I don't have to highlight the whole thing, I can just double click and there we go. Does anyone have any questions about anything?
What are the, so I know that the instrument racks like pianos and synths and stuff have letter notes. Do drum kits also have letter notes? How does the drum kit look on there?
Good question. So the drum kit actually,
Oh, I see.
yeah, so it's kind of weird because at first, like, it still allows you to move up and down, which was strange at first because I didn't really know where it was, but it's all you have to know is that, like, if you put a drum kit in and it's not making any noise, just go all the way down to the bottom by just hitting the arrow key down a bunch until you get to the bottom. You'll know it's the bottom because if you push down again, you'll see the advanced filter stuff come up, which I couldn't find out what that means. If you guys have any idea what that means as musical people, or if you just happen across it, let me know, but I've not touched that. They mention it in the tutorial, but it was like, hey, this is here. And I was like, great. I have no idea what that means. So, but all your drum stuff is down here at the bottom, and each line is just a different piece of the drum kit. So, you know, if I wanted a cymbal, again, look, I want to try out the cymbal, so now I have to specifically go here. So it's a little inconvenient, but, you know, it's a free software for people that have no idea what they're doing. Oh, so that's what the cymbal sounds like, you know, so you can just kind of put it wherever and make however many patterns you want. I don't think there's a limit to the patterns. If there is, it's pretty high because I have like 36 different patterns. Let me just like, let's see, let's find out. You know, you can have at least 50.
No, quit, stop.
You have more. So if you scroll the wheel, you can, you know, kind of shrink or make the timeline smaller so it fits more stuff. But, you know, if you go to the side, it'll bring this up and you can touch, or you can just use the arrow keys. So if you move left and right with the arrow keys, you'll just move back and forth along the timeline. And if you go up or down, you'll move up or down on the scale. And other than that, that's, again, it's a very basic program. There's not a huge amount of stuff that you can do with it, but, you know, you have the tools that you need. You can choose whatever instrument you want. You can choose whatever in that, you know, family of instruments that you want. And again, a lot of these you kind of have to mess around with yourself to see what they sound like, but it's really about the feeling that you want in your song, which is something that I cannot tell you what you want for your song. So I had no idea what kind of song I was going to be making or whatever. I just kind of picked a scale and just put notes in. So yeah, as far as music goes, like music theory, the only thing I can really say is if you're on one, you know, measure, put everything in that measure in the same scale. You can change the scale later on or whatever, like you can switch in between, but just don't do it in the same measure because it'll sound wonky, like defeats the whole point of doing it in one scale, because you might as well just go to the regular scale then. And then that does not sound good, but if I do that in one of the other scales, it sounds all right. So does anyone have any questions before we close up?
Does this whole song, so for every single pattern, are all of them in just like, I know I'm sure you have different like scales, but are all of them in C? Is this whole thing in C? Just out of the curiosity of my soul.
I wish I knew.
I have a feeling they all are.
They probably are.
Yeah, I think they all
The
are.
scale changes, but it looks
Yeah.
like
Oh, yeah. I didn't mess with like the
Okay, so
I just left it all in C.
I will probably note if you change that for one thing, unless you want to deliberately have a key change in your song, all of them should probably have the same letter. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So you heard from him. You know, if you are making a song and you don't specifically want a key change, leave this alone. Mess with the scale if you want. You can change the scale in the middle. But unless you're trying to go for a very specific kind of like, okay, we're nearing the end of the song, just do that key change of like half a step or whatever, you know, just leave that the same. So other than that, again, like this is the main reason you are going to use this program as someone who doesn't know what music is, so you can just make the scale one thing and make music.
You said there was a way to like copy this up, right?
Huh? Yeah. So say you just want to move one pattern over, you can just click and drag it. But say you want to have a pattern that sounds similar, but then you want to modify it, right or middle click on it with like your mouse wheel button, and that'll change it to, it'll create a new pattern for it, but the new pattern will have all the same stuff in it. So now you don't have to worry about just kind of recopying it over. Anyone else? Okay. I think that's all I have for me. Again, you know, mess around it with yourself. See what kind of instruments you like, what you don't like. Mess with the filter. This one's really more on you guys. You know, like I showed you the basics. There's not much here on a face level. It's really more what you can do with the program, because again, it'll give you those basic tools. But if you're trying to do something more advanced, you kind of got to fight with it a little bit. So. It goes up to a max of 220 on the BPM and down to a minimum of 10 BPM. And other than that, you know, just have fun making music.
Like for 48 hours.
Thanks, Quinn.
That's actually such a cool.
So go into OBS
Yeah.
and click stop.